Okay, so if you've been following the news even a little bit lately, you've definitely seen the headlines about the NEET examination paper leak. But in this explainer, we're not just going to rehash the testing controversy or talk about logistical failures. We're actually taking a step back to look at this as a symptom of our modern human condition. What if this breaking news is actually a mirror, reflecting a way deeper systemic issue in how we live today? Let's dive in.
It's incredibly easy to just get bogged down in the logistics of a leaked test, right? The politics, the institutional failures, the outrage. But what if this massive trending news event is actually exposing a much deeper psychological and cultural crisis that literally all of us are going through right now? We're using this controversy as a perfect starting point to examine the heavy psychological structures we've pretty much built our entire lives around. And this brings us to a really fascinating contrast. Just think about how we live today. We are unbelievably trained in competition, in survival, in crushing our goals, and building these massive professional identities. Like, people today know exactly how to earn a paycheck and exactly how to qualify for things like the NEET exam. But in that relentless, nonstop pursuit, we've totally disconnected from what you might call the forgotten arts, the raw intelligence of life itself. A lot of us literally don't know how to truly rest anymore. We've forgotten how to understand our own bodies, our nervous systems, or how to just find a basic sense of inner equilibrium.
So here is the absolutely crucial takeaway. We have completely outsourced our very existence. And it's not just happening in one area of life. Healing, outsourced. Thinking, outsourced. Living itself, completely outsourced. We've somehow reached this point where we depend entirely on external authorities to just tell us how to live. Instead of listening to our bodies when we feel a bit off, we instantly reach for a pill. Instead of cultivating our own joy or just, sitting quietly with our thoughts, we rely on massive industries to entertain us and tell us exactly what we should care about. It's crazy when you realize that these massive institutional structures have grown specifically to replace our natural human abilities. Think about it. The pharmaceutical and insurance systems have essentially stepped in to replace our natural vitality and our innate understanding of our own health. Those endless 24-hour news cycles, they completely replace independent thought and clear, conscious observation. And our constant quest for social validation has totally replaced inner clarity and the simple joy of just living a quiet life. We've ended up in this system of perpetual consumption, where entire massive industries literally profit off keeping us disconnected from our own natural awareness.
Now, hold on. Let's take a quick pause here because this is really important to clarify. This is absolutely not about rejecting science or attacking doctors. Not at all. In fact, if you talk to many medical professionals, they are completely exhausted being stuck inside these exact same systems. So the goal of our explainer today isn't to point fingers or cast blame on any specific profession. We're simply trying to neutrally question our collective, kind of blind dependence on these overwhelming structures. To really get a grasp on what we've lost, we actually have to look backwards for a second. In ancient and native cultures, and especially within ancient Indian traditions, health wasn't some medical transaction. It definitely wasn't an insurance billing code. Health was understood as this profound harmony. It meant a seamless, totally integrated balance between food, nature, rest, your community, family, your breath, your consciousness, and just the natural rhythms of life itself. It was a deeply interconnected way of living, not just a product you went out and bought only after you were already broken. Of course, this shift didn't just happen overnight. It was a very gradual slide. Starting from that ancient harmony, we moved into the industrial era. Suddenly, entire generations were conditioned into pure survival mode. Time and money became the absolute driving forces of human life. And well, that leads us directly to the present day. Now we routinely send children away. We separate families for the sake of education, for jobs, for intense competition, all just to ensure what we like to call a secure future. But somewhere in that relentless, multi-generational hustle for survival, families just stopped truly living together. They stopped healing together and understanding one another on a deep level. There is no reconciliation where there is no presence. Just let that sink in for a moment. Modern systems are absolutely amazing at promising us convenience, security, and progress. But almost everything they offer comes with a massive hidden cost, a deep psychological, emotional, physical, or spiritual dependency. When we are constantly chasing that next big achievement or the next qualification, we completely lose our presence with each other. And without presence, we lose our deepest human connections. It's really that simple. And that leads us to a super fascinating, though maybe a little uncomfortable, concept: humanity's victim consciousness. Think about it.
We've lived for so long under the assumption that true freedom comes from external systems. We're constantly waiting around for the right politician, the perfect policy, the right institution, or just some form of external validation to finally swoop in, save us, and make everything fair. But here's the catch. By believing our freedom is always out there in somebody else's hands, we are quietly and gradually just handing over our own power. We are giving away our inner independence. Okay, so what's the alternative then? Well, it's about totally redefining what it actually means to be free. True independence isn't just a political state, it's inner independence. It's the very real ability to think clearly for yourself, to observe consciously without the TV telling you what to see. It's the ability to heal deeply and to live simply. Basically, it's remaining deeply rooted within yourself, completely beyond all the fear, the trending topics, the endless transactions, and those exhausting societal games we're constantly pressured to play. Which brings us right back to events like the neat paper leak. When these massive systems crack or fail, it's really not some prophecy of doom, a punishment, or the apocalypse. It's actually just these systems revealing their own limits to us. They're cracking so that humanity can finally remember what has always existed right beneath them. Because beyond the endless exchange of money, the status games, and the cutthroat competition, there is still something profoundly human waiting for us. And honestly, that is exactly what this current moment in society is trying to reveal. Now, what's really interesting is that when these massive systems fail, the truly human response isn't exactly what you might think. It's not about blind rebellion, it's not about hatred, and it's definitely not escapism. The true revelation here is simply awareness. To figure out what we actually want as a society, we first have to just gently loosen our grip on everything that offers us comfort, distraction, or temporary security, especially when it costs us our own inner clarity. Because real healing, it doesn't start in a pharmacy or in some sprawling corporate institution. Real healing actually begins when human beings finally reconnect. We have to reconnect with nature, with our families, with our roots, and with stillness. We desperately need to foster honest relationships again, tune back into our own physical bodies, and essentially just reclaim the forgotten art of simply being alive. And as we start reclaiming that art of living, our whole definition of success has to change. Real wealth is vitality. It's not just the numbers sitting in a bank account or the fancy insurance policies you hold. True wealth is the natural, buzzing energy and harmony of a life that is genuinely well-lived. Furthermore, real intelligence is awareness. It goes so far beyond just knowing how to study, how to compete, and how to qualify for some standardized exam. True intelligence is the quiet, conscious observation of yourself and the world around you, completely free from this blind dependence on external authorities. And that brings us to the ultimate takeaway of this entire explainer. Real freedom begins the moment you stop outsourcing your existence. When you finally take back your healing, your thinking, and your living from the massive industries that have monetized them, that's when you step into a profound, absolutely unshakable inner independence. So I'm going to leave you with this question to chew on long after this explainer ends. Are you ready to reclaim your inner independence and stop outsourcing your existence? Seriously, take a hard look at your own life this week. Notice the places where you hand your power over to a system just for the sake of convenience, or maybe out of fear. It's a tough question for sure, but answering it might literally be the key to finding your true vitality. Thank you so much for joining me for this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep observing, and keep learning.